Hello, good morning. In Turkey, the arrest of Istanbul Mayor İmamoğlu has sparked nationwide protests, raising concerns about democracy, rule of law, and the country's future. With Erdogan's grip on power tightening, what does this mean for Turkey's political landscape and its position on the global stage? Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, American farmers are feeling the brunt of Trump's latest tariffs. Once staunch supporters, they now find themselves at the center of a trade war, facing rising costs and shrinking export markets. Could this economic turmoil shift the political dynamics in rural America? Let's get in focus. We'll start with the situation in Turkey, and the country has drawn global attention following the arrest of Ekrem İmamoğlu, Istanbul's mayor and a key opposition leader. Accused of corruption and ties to terrorism, İmamoğlu's detention, widely seen as politically driven, has triggered nationwide protests and fears of democratic backsliding ahead of the 2028 elections. While Erdogan's government defends the judiciary's independence, critics see an attempt to sideline a major rival. The lira plunged and investor confidence faltered, raising broader concerns about Turkey's political stability, economic direction, and standing within NATO. According to the FT, the Financial Times, İmamoğlu's arrest casts a long shadow over Turkey's political future. Once again, legal charges appear to be used against a rising opposition figure, just as he was expected to run for president. This move comes with broader implications. It raises doubts about Erdogan's commitment to democratic norms, especially after his allies pushed for constitutional changes, allowing him to run again. Economically, the fallout is already visible. The lira plunged, investors pulled back, and Turkey's fragile stability took another hit. European leaders have raised concerns, but their responses may remain muted, given Turkey's importance to NATO and its role in managing migration. Joining us now is Osama Ruslan, a legal linguist and political analyst. Dr. Ruslan, thank you very much for joining us here on In Focus. So İmamoğlu's arrest has sparked major protests in Turkey. Do you believe this could be some kind of turning point for Turkey's political opposition? And how do you assess the situation?
Thank you for having me. Yes, it may very well be so, a turning point for Turkey's political opposition. After all, you're talking about the most prominent opposition figure with a strong legacy of resistance to what he and others in Turkey see as authoritarian measures. Besides, such an arrest sends a wave of imbalance and uncertainty among the opposition parties in Turkey, while they are galvanizing to offer an alternative to the incumbent president in the next elections. This leaves them in a state of uncertainty and maybe a state of potential conflict. I mean, between the opposition parties themselves regarding the next joint candidate for the upcoming presidential election. This is particularly important when considering the Turkish opposition's call for early elections. So, instead of the fact that İmamoğlu bringing up a huge challenge to the incumbent government in Turkey, İmamoğlu's side is now rather challenged by the fact that he is legally, and let me underline this, legally prevented from joining the most heated political action in the country. And legally here, of course, is in the terms of the incumbent government in Turkey. This means a replacement must be nominated agreed on and hugely and heavily marketed to the Turkish electorate and to the allies of Turkey at the same time. And it is also about the timing of the targeting. Imamoglu's Republican People's Party was about to hold its own primaries for the next presidential elections this Sunday. So with Imamoglu being the only candidate for these primaries, now the party is calling for just a symbolic vote next this Sunday on the primaries day across Turkey.
Okay. And the government, of course, the Erdogan government insists that this case is just a legal matter, not a political one. How credible do you think these claims are?
Less credible than political, in fact. At the end of the day, Imamoglu is a businessman, a real estate developer, and a social democratic politician. He is also the 32nd mayor of Istanbul and has been serving as a mayor of Istanbul since March 2019. With this in mind, only now that he is found corrupt, only now, and even with links to terrorist organizations, when arresting a man on such a charges, people would be expecting you, I mean the authorities, to show them convincing, even hard evidence, not to cut off major transportation, internet, and social media services. In addition, even if these charges stand legal and later on judicial reasoning, how are they in any way relevant to revoking the accusee's university degree? And this is the legal stance on which the incumbent government says he cannot be allowed to run for president because he does not have a university degree. How was this degree not among the requirements of public service throughout Imamoglu's business and political career? This question and other considerations of well point a finger of doubt, if not discredit, to the accusing authorities. And again, the Turkish president is accusing Imamoglu of theatrics, but the opposition is accusing the government of attempting a coup, a political coup. So these are more political than credible.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that because there are growing concerns that Erdogan is tightening his grip on power once again, but now, of course, ahead of 2028. Do you think there's any chance that this move could backfire and galvanize opposition forces against him?
Yes, opposition parties have been galvanizing in almost every political action over the last 10 to 15 years in Turkey. Still, according to the Turkish constitution, as amended under Erdogan, Erdogan has no right to run for president anymore. So, within months, be they long or short, a successor has to be nominated or the constitution has to be amended in Turkey. So, according to credible sources, Erdogan is seeking to push forward his once head of intelligence and now foreign minister Hakan Fidan as Erdogan's next successor. And by that date, I mean 2028, Erdogan will be 57 or I'm sorry, 70, 75 or even older, which really casts so much doubt about his ability to run the country anymore. But sending the shockwave among the opposition circles, as I highlighted a while ago, which result in some political and electoral turbulence that would hamper the chances of reaching a unitary stance regarding a candidate other than Imamoglu, this now brings the ball to the court of the opposition, a flammable ball, actually. And by the way, in all previous elections, Erdogan and his party has had to run against what I would call the twin threats of a reinvigorated opposition and a weakened currency. We all remember the 2018 elections in which Muharrem İnce ran across Erdogan. And in 2014, Kemaluddin Ihsanoglu was the joint candidate against the then prime minister, I mean Erdogan. All those historical political steps taken together, the upcoming elections and the most feared runner, I mean Imamoglu, are the most threatening to President Erdogan's power and legacy of all time. And by the way, for a fact, Imamoglu represents the first time since Erdogan came to power that his party, I mean Erdogan's party, was defeated across the country at the ballot box. So Imamoglu is a clear threat to the incumbent government in Turkey.
Well, you mentioned the economy there, Dr. Russell, and this whole situation with Mamoglu has already caused the markets to react negatively, lira plummeting, investor confidence shaken. Do you think there's a chance that this political crisis could have deeper economic consequences?
Yeah, definitely. Consequences will be harmful, whether in the short term or the long term. Capital is a coward, as economists say. So, if I cannot run a business because internet services are cut off for sheerly political reasons, that sends the wrong message to business and investment circles, of course. This was even a point of Turkish lecturing lash outs against similar situations in other countries years ago. So now, this, coupled with the global and regional political uncertainty considering the situation in Gaza, the Israeli expansionism, not to mention, of course, the wake-up call in Europe for stronger military capabilities and action, and with several domestic non-conducive conditions in Turkey, the recent quake, I mean, the arrest of Imamoglu, is expected to have a significant economic toll.
And Turkey, of course, remains a key NATO member and an important player in European security. How do you think Western allies might react to the latest developments?
Well, in my point of view, they will be acting the same way they have been, expressing concerns, calling for honoring the requirements of a democratic process. Such an attitude goes so much easier on allies, such as Turkey, of course, than it might be experienced by other countries. Yet, generally speaking, Turkey more aligned to a pan-European and NATO Eurasian interests than to purely Turkish interests is a Turkey much churched by NATO. Let me explain. To have Turkey focusing on guarding the NATO and pan-European interests in Europe and Asia would be more beneficial and to the better would be better received by the NATO and Europe. Erdogan's Turkey has been so much involved on several fronts, especially in the last 15 years. And if the incumbent Turkish government becomes an outgoing government in a time soon, aftershocks will be felt in Asia, Europe, and even in Africa. So
Okay.
Western allies will be closely monitoring the situation and preparing for all developments and scenarios.
Well, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to have you on the program, Dr. Osama Raslan. Thank you very much for joining us. So Imamoglu's arrest has set a wave of uncertainty in Turkey, with potential repercussions for both domestic politics and international relations. But as political tensions rise in Turkey, economic tensions are intensifying in the United States. Trump's trade policies have once again put American farmers in the crosshairs. With retaliatory tariffs from China, Canada, and Mexico, U.S. agriculture is facing mounting pressure. Could this trade war come at a political cost for Donald Trump?
Donald Trump is his name. He's there to stay.
As unlikely, impossible, is now reality.
America powerful. We will win, win, win. And we will make America great again. We will very quickly make America great again.
President Trump's latest tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China are straining his relationship with a key base, farmers. From soybeans to beef, exports are being hit hard. Input costs are rising, and uncertainty is making it harder for many to survive, let alone plan. Foreign policy reports growing frustration among farmers caught in the crossfire. China's tariffs on soybeans and pork, Canada's retaliation on aluminium, and Mexico's blow to U.S. produce are shrinking markets. This mirrors the fallout from Trump's first trade war, which cost farmers billions and shifted major buyers like China to new suppliers such as Brazil. Many farmers fear history is repeating itself. While Trump promises short-term aid, the long-term damage may be harder to reverse. With the midterms approaching, some of Trump's strongest supporters are beginning to ask, is the cost of loyalty too high? Now, to discuss this on the program, we are joined by Ahmed Muharrem, who is a writer and a political analyst. Thanks for being here on In Focus with us. So farmers have traditionally been strong supporters of Trump. Do you see there's a chance of this changing in light of these recent tariffs?
Well, I think one of those very difficult and sensitive executive orders by President Trump concerning the farmers and their production, I think that is going to have a very sad and very negative impact to their production. They used to have huge amount of production for the local consumption within the 50 states of the United States of America, and also to export very important and essential agricultural product to the neighborhoods. That kind of tariff, I think it will affect their capability to have enough production for the local consumption and for the export as well. Meanwhile, also, America is relying on different countries, neighborhood America and Mexico, to export from there a certain amount of food products and animal products. In both ways, I think we felt for the last 2 months there is inflation and there is increase of products, local, very important products like milk, like eggs. And they said because there is something happened between the trade negotiation in Canada and in Mexico, it make the prices of such a dozen of eggs, which it used to be around 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 maximum, even by the time of Corona, we will never reach that kind of prices. Nowadays, the dozen of eggs is very competitive, reach $10 and $12. Eggs to the American people is considered like fool and falafel for our people in Egypt. So I think that kind of tariff, it will have a very sad and sensitive impact to the quality and capability of farmers to produce such a kind of products, and as well to the capability of the personnel capabilities to buy or to purchase certain amount of food enough for their families.
And China, of course, has imposed tariffs on soybeans and other key agricultural products like that. How big an impact will these tariffs by China have on American exports?
Well, definitely, maybe as we are starting to have this kind of impact is not clear yet, but I think if it will continue like that, there is a very huge amount of negative impact it will happen. But hope there's so many of those executive director, Mr. President either he stopped it or he, kept it for certain amount of time for more negotiation. So I hope that kind of decision can be under negotiation or reviewing it for some time. Otherwise, it will be difficult for both sides.
And rising costs, of course, for imports like fertilizer, like fuel, are also hitting farmers hard. It's kind of a double whammy. How do you see this affecting the industry?
Well, industry is more or less relying on those different kind of agricultural raw materials. It helps another different, multiple kind of industry as well. So as far as those prices will be affected, and maybe the production will be shrinking sometime, the demand is always increasing, but the supply under this kind of circumstances will face a kind of a problem sooner or later.
Mr. Muharrem, Trump has argued on the other side of things that these tariffs will ultimately strengthen American agriculture. Do you think that argument holds up at all?
I assume, yes, that will have very quick and very clear kind of effective to the farming and the farmer industry and the farmer themselves in the United States.
Many farmers are recalling the economic pain, you mentioned it just before, of the 2018 trade war. Could this dispute have long-term consequences for the U.S. agriculture sector?
I think so, absolutely. It is going to be one of the very sensitive kind of, effect. And maybe it's not clear yet, but if it is going to be running like that, I think very soon it will show that there is a negative impact will happen sooner or later. Yeah.
And could the economic strain impact Trump's support among rural voters? Is he going to get a shellacking in the midterms?
I assume yes, because he cannot escape from the important that farmers is a very essential part of the production cycle in the United States of America. Somehow it will happen sooner or later.
Yeah. And also, Mr. Muharrem, when it comes to the situation, you've got tariffs in all kinds of different sectors. Are they starting to take effect yet? Is the pain starting to be felt already?
Well, the pain is starting to felt locally on the local market with the consumer. The American people, American citizens, or even the people that are visiting American states, they start to feel that such a kind of products in the supermarkets, in the restaurant is getting higher, like 10, 15, 20%. The farmers' capability to face that for the long term, I think it's a big question mark, but let us wait and see if something can happen to reduce or to reaffirm that kind of decision again. I hope so.
But what about the Republican Party themselves, with people up for re-election perhaps at the midterms? Are the Republican Party lawmakers starting to get a little bit nervous about these tariffs?
Absolutely, yes, because the Republicans are concerned about their future and their, impact and relation with the citizens. So somehow, if the that political party can do some kind of pressure to the president, I think maybe he can change his mind sometime, in the future.
Well, he may well do that. Thank you very much for joining us here on the program, Ahmed Muharrem. Thank you for joining us indeed. The economic pressure facing American farmers is growing, and as tariffs continue to shape the agricultural landscape, their political implications could be significant. From Turkey's deepening political crisis to the economic challenges facing American farmers, today's episode has explored two key global developments. Will Turkey's opposition find a way forward in the wake of Imamoglu's arrest? And could US farmers become the unexpected victims of Trump's trade war? We'll keep these developments in focus. See you next time.